Burlesque Stripped Down, episode number 7. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, this is Velvet Eau Claire, your guide through all of the saucy, sexy secrets of the ladies and gents behind the tassels. I am so excited that you decided to join me today. Thank you so much for being a wonderful part of this podcast burlesque journey. I'm so happy to have you here. Today I am thrilled to be joined by the beautiful Adele Wolf, straight from Oklahoma City. She is currently touring around France and Germany, and so we pre-recorded this interview. If you are listening to this in November and are in Europe and manage to check her out, I highly recommend seeing her, or when she gets back to town, if you can make a trip to Oklahoma City or anywhere else she's going to be. So I loved having her on the show. We talk about a lot of stuff, including some amazing David Bowie and an awesome story. I love her story of her worst turned into a very good burlesque moment. So stay tuned for that. Before I get into that, a few announcements. If you're enjoying these podcasts, please share with your friends all over social media. Tell anybody who will listen all about this podcast. We want to get out in front of as many ears as possible, and I would love to have some feedback. So please send me email love. Any of your thoughts, I'd love to hear back from you, particularly some of the last Hot Tips episodes I've done. I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at velvet@burlesquestrippeddown.com. As far as this episode goes, you can find all of the show notes over at burlesquestrippeddown.com/Adele, Adele. If you're over on iTunes and can hit subscribe and give me a quick rating and review, that would be lovely. I don't have a lot going on over there yet, and I would really love to kind of go up in the rankings a little bit there, so that would be really appreciated as well. But mostly importantly, if you could just share these episodes with everyone you know, I would love you forever. But enough of my begging and pleading. That's not what you're here for. You are here to hear all of these secrets from Miss Adele Wolf, the beautiful, the sexy, the saucy. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, ladies and gents, I am super excited to have the fabulous Adele Wolf here with me today. Now, Adele is an internationally touring and award-winning burlesque performer and producer, and not only that, she is an internationally published model and actress, and she's based in Oklahoma City. She's a producer, too, of Adele Wolf's Burlesque and Variety Show, as well as the Oklahoma City Burlesque Festival. And she's the headmistress of the Oklahoma School of Burlesque and Dr. Sketchy's Anti-Art School, Oklahoma City. Adele, that is a lot of things.
Yeah, it is.
Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks. I'm doing well.
I want to welcome you here. Why don't you take a quick second to say hello to the Burlesque Stripped Down audience, and if you can add anything that we might have missed. I put a lot in the intro, but add anything that we might have missed in there.
I think you really got it all. I try to keep my bio updated. You know, it's easier to keep it updated than to go redo the whole thing all the time.
Well, that's a lot going on. You must be very busy.
Yes, always.
Yeah, and I know that, I'm sure that some of us, I have to admit, are probably rather surprised by the thriving burlesque scene there in Oklahoma City. But, clearly you've been a big part of getting that going.
Yeah,
right?
It was not always this way.
Well, that's awesome. I don't know when you have time to sleep, but I'm glad it's, you're bringing it to life in a new place like that. What's something that you have going on now that you're the most excited about?
Well, I will be returning to Europe for another European tour on November 6th. So, of course, I'm excited about that.
Definitely. That's great. Europe is always a good idea, right?
Yeah, always.
And where will you be heading? I know you'll be going to Paris.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be in Paris, Lyon, and Hamburg.
Very good. And how long is your trip?
See, I return back December 1st. So about 3.5 weeks.
Fabulous. Very nice. That's one of the best things about being a burlesque performer is that we have these opportunity to kind of supplement our trips with gigs, right?
Oh, for sure.
That's great. Well, cool. And I know you just finished up a big show, right? As we're recording this, you just had your Halloween show, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah. 4th annual Halloween Spectacular.
Excellent. How did that go?
It went great. It's growing every year. So the Adele Wolf's Burlesque and Variety Show is a quarterly show that I produce in Oklahoma. So we have a big theater, about 200 capacity, and, it's almost like a mini festival in terms of scale.
Well, I'm going to have to kind of make a point to come and visit it sometime. I've never been to Oklahoma City. I'll admit I maybe never had much of a desire to go to Oklahoma City, but I'm going to have to make a trip now just for you.
Yeah, it's really growing too. We have a lot of awesome cultural things here that people don't realize exist. So it's definitely worth a visit.
That's great. Very cool. So I want to kind of go back to the beginning, of your journey. I know you've been involved in burlesque for a long time, but when and maybe how did you really know that it was the right thing for you, that burlesque was something you wanted to do?
Well, back when YouTube was first sort of becoming a thing, I was in high school and I was very involved in theater in high school. And we did a lot of plays that were set in the 1950s. And that's where I started to become interested in pinup makeup and hair and styling. And in researching that, I stumbled upon the Something Weird videos with people like Betty Page and Tempest Storm.
Oh, yeah.
If my mom only knew. I mean, she knows now, but so I was watching, classic burlesque videos when I was 16, and even at that time, it was something that really resonated with me and was kind of always on the back of my mind from that time until I finally started performing burlesque a few years later.
That's great. That's really neat when, we kind of have these things that resonate with us. We're not really sure, especially at that age, you're not really sure what you want to do with it, but it speaks to you, right?
Yeah.
That's great. Was there those videos in general, was there a particular number or performer specifically that inspired you, or just those in general?
In general, the whole classic style.
Mm-hmm.
I did take a lot of inspiration from Betty Page when I first started, which is funny because people still tell me sometimes that they see a lot of that in my performances.
Absolutely.
Even though she's not a big influence of mine so much anymore. I mean, of course she is, but, not like she was like the main deal when I got started.
Sure, like that kind of core, person that kind of shaped who you are. I think about that a lot, not necessarily my burlesque performance, but just in my life.
Right.
It's silly, but Prince was actually a huge influence for me, right? And in developing kind of my personality as I listened to like the music and his character and things like that. Again, not necessarily my performance,
right.
And then even though I don't listen, I still listen to Prince, who doesn't, but he's not, it's not like a daily thing for me anymore. I still consider him to be one of kind of my real influencing, especially when they come in as when we're teenagers, right? Because that's such a influential time for us.
Oh yeah. Well, Prince is a great person to have for that.
Oh my gosh. I love that man so much. Yeah. Once a friend and I were at a concert, and literally, because I think we had gotten really good seats, we were in like 13th, 15th row, something like that. And somebody came over and asked us if we wanted to go up on stage with him. I almost died, but we weren't old enough. You had to be 21. I was like devastated at the time. I was so sad. Oh, worst day of my life. Worst and best day all together in one. It was a lot of good feelings. Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, enough about me. Back to you. All right. Do you think, you mentioned the fact that, Betty Page is kind of something that you still find yourself emulating, not on purpose necessarily, but that vibe. Is there maybe that or something different? What would you consider the biggest misconception about you?
I think, I try to go by the motto, like, what other people think of me is none of my business.
It's a good one.
But I think one of the biggest misconceptions about people who make a living from their art in general is that because we love our work, we don't do any work. Or people don't realize like all of the mundane and tedious tasks that go into the final product that they see, like all the administrative stuff. Like I spend most days emailing and making set lists.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very true.
And the costuming and all of that, I get a lot of joy out of as well. But, I would say over half of what we do is, paperwork and boring stuff, just like any other job. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot of it, it's not all fun. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Very, very true. And then, of course, there's the whole, the debate comes up a lot on my Facebook and everything lately about working for free, right? People don't see all of the things that go into, any art form, really. it just they see the final product, and so they don't realize all the time and money and energy and effort that goes into it.
Definitely.
Do you have any heroes, whether it's in the burlesque realm or just in life in general?
Oh yeah, this is easy. I was waiting for this question, but the way that you described your feelings about Prince, for me, that is David Bowie.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that. So tell us about your feelings for David Bowie.
Oh God, you don't want to be here all night.
Okay, let's spend 20 seconds on your feelings for David Bowie.
Well, David Bowie is my first crush, and really my first obsession. I'm still really obsessed with him. Let's be real. I saw him in a Labyrinth when I was 6 years old. And after that, any sort of like Christmas money or birthday money or anything like that, I would save up and I would go buy, my mom would take me to buy Bowie cassettes, and I would refuse to go to sleep at night until she would put on a Bowie tape for me.
Oh my God.
And it just kind of developed from there. I mean, and like as an adult, I am even more inspired by him. I read a lot about his career and the way that he has used his inspirations in various art forms to find inspiration, propel his music career. And he's really just an eclectic, artistic genius, as well as a marketing genius. I find everything about his career and body of work to be really inspiring.
Wow. Well, that's really interesting. And I will be the first to admit I know very, very little to nothing about David Bowie. It just wasn't ever anything that really called to me. Mm-hmm. But that's interesting that it's not only, his performance and the music and the, Labyrinth and things like that, but that you've really felt connected to him as a marketer, as a businessman and everything like that.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the time that he did the things he did in, and it's really insane. I mean, he was like the first real out rock star,
mm-hmm.
made being queer cool. That's a big deal.
Well, that's great that you've been able to find such inspiration from, and had someone so important to you that you've gotten to kind of take that from for years and years. You mentioned him finding kind of that inspiration for his creations and everything. What's your kind of creation or inspiration journey when you create your burlesque acts?
I would have to say, well, something not very many people know about me is that the first art form I was really heavily involved with is music.
Oh, yeah.
I played clarinet for a long time and guitar. I self-taught keyboards. I'm a vocalist. Music has always been a very big passion of mine, and music is where my inspiration comes from. And it's kind of strange. I mean, I've talked to other people about their processes, and mine is more often than not, I will be listening to a piece of music that I really love, that I may have heard literally hundreds of times before. And for some reason, it may be the circumstances at that time in my life or, just anything. It occurs to me differently that day for some reason. And I get inspired and I think of a concept and a costume, and then it all just sort of comes from there.
I love what you said there about the circumstances of your life. And that's something, I mean, I guess like we've thought about that being true, but I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It could be a song that you've heard a million times, and yet it's just that perfect storm of whatever you're experiencing in your life. And maybe if you've just come from a burlesque class or you've just watched, whatever it is, and it just hits. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really neat way of looking at it, because it's, we've talked a lot, like even on this podcast, about, listening to new numbers, right? And you hear a new piece of music and you're just like, ooh, yeah. That happened to me the other night. I was watching Dancing with the Stars and they were doing something and I'm like, ooh, that's a song.
Yeah.
There you go. But even with music we already know.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
It's kind of odd. I almost always dance to music that I already know.
Do you find that you kind of get tired of that music, or do you still then end up loving it?
I can never listen to it in the same way. Like, I can't listen to it for leisure anymore, but I still love it, and it finds, like, a new special meaning for me.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. I mean, it just changes, right? Because I even am dealing with that. Like, there was this song I did. Actually, it was my first act was to "Bloodstream" by Stateless,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved it. You know, it was one of those that I would always listen to all the time just for myself. And then I did the act to it, and now I find I'm having a very different relationship, and it's kind of bittersweet. I'm kind of sad because I miss that, like when I would hear it and just be like transported, and just because it's kind of a mystical kind of a quality, but.
Right.
But you're right, it takes on a different meaning. You know, it's a different thing.
Right. Yeah, I tell my students, you better love the songs you choose to perform to if you want to do them for a while.
Definitely. Yeah, I just talked about that too on when I was doing my the 12 tips for your first burlesque performance. That was my first hot tips episode here on the podcast, and that was the very first one. I'm like, you need to know your music inside and out, and you better love it, and you got to feel it in your bones, and if you don't like it, well, that's going to be a problem for you because it's there.
Yep.
Well, you've had a long burlesque journey. I mean, even before you were performing, when you were just internalizing it and making it kind of becoming a part of who you are. I want to get down to the, as I always say, like the down and dirty, the grittiness, because we're all people. We've had great moments. We've had bad moments. What has been the kind of worst moment of your journey so far, either burlesque or general performance?
It's really hard for me to think of a worst moment.
That seems to be a general concept. And I think that's a cool thing about our industry, If you could, do you have one?
Well, the thing is, burlesque has been such a positive experience overall that the worst moments in my life certainly aren't even tied to burlesque. I'd have to say, it doesn't really compare to like a worst moment in your life, but
sure.
We've all had those really horrible gigs where it really feels like work,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes everything, you have a shitty dressing room, if you can call it that, and maybe a disgusting unisex bathroom, or
yeah,
or your music gets horribly screwed up throughout the act. So, well, you know what? Actually, I'll tell a story of a horrible time that actually turned into a great memory.
All right, cool. Go for it.
Okay. This was in 2013, January 2013. It was my first time performing in New York City. Not my first gig, but my first trip to perform in New York. And I had been booked for this bar gig to do 2 acts. I had started coming down with the flu that day. I didn't know it at that time. I just knew I felt shitty. But later on, I discovered that it had been the flu creeping up. And it was a dirty dive bar. The dressing area was a unisex bathroom that reeked. It was very dirty. And my second act, I was performing under pressure, and my music quit about halfway into the song.
Oh my God.
And I continued the song in my head and kept dancing. And
it was in your bones.
Yes, my bones. And a few seconds later, this girl started singing it. And then
no way.
Other people in the bar started singing it, and they fell out, but she sang the song to the finish.
Oh my God.
And like having that horrible night, like being sick, being like, oh God, this gig is rough, the music, everything was worth it because I'll always have that memory of that audience member.
That's one of the coolest things I've ever heard.
It was pretty great.
That's so great.
Yeah. I'm glad I was doing a song that people know.
True, yeah. Some songs would be kind of hard to do that for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. We can have a lot of those, the tough gigs. And the hard part is if they happen early in our burlesque journey, sometimes for some people that can kind of turn them off or make them question their decision and things like that. So it's luckily, hopefully that happened, earlier in the night anyway, before the cool part started. Hopefully you were far enough along in your journey. Did it give you any pause at all? Did it make you kind of question what you were doing, or did you know that it was just kind of a bad night?
Oh, I knew it was a bad night, and I was thrilled with that audience member interaction.
I love it. Do you have a particular best moment? I don't know if that would include it, or just a moment that really resonates with you as one of your high points of your journey.
I mean, there's really a lot. Some of the best times of my life have been directly related to burlesque. Um, I think, something that I really cherish is that I've had the opportunity to have a relationship with April March. She's a burlesque legend from Oklahoma. She worked the Minsky shows and all the biggest shows of her time. She worked with Ann Corio. She was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And you got to work with her?
Yeah, we met at Burlesque Hall of Fame in 2013, I believe. Or maybe it was 2014. Either way, since then, I brought her to Oklahoma City and she performed in my show, which was the first time she performed or even been in Oklahoma City since the 1960s.
Wow.
And we've become really close. We talk several times a week, and she's really become a mentor, and she's asked me to do her tribute number. So that's the next thing that we're working on.
That's so
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge, when you have somebody that's a legend like that, and not only you get to kind of meet them, but you get to work with them, become that kind of, I don't even know what the word is, friend or mentee or whatever it is, and then to be able to pay them tribute.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a really huge honor. And I mean, she's just become like part of the family.
So what is the biggest risk that you've ever taken in your performance career or in your life, actually? Leave it open-ended.
I would say starting my production company was a big risk. And it's grown, I mean, enormously since I started it. I mean, it's crazy to think about where I started. But every time I've grown it has been a big risk also. It's paid off, but doesn't make it any less scary when it's happening. You're doubling your budget and the amount of work you're taking on.
Absolutely. What was kind of the story that made you start it? Where did the idea come from, and did you know right away that you wanted to do it, or how did that develop?
Producing kind of fell into my lap. I had lived in several other cities, and burlesque wasn't happening in any of them. I actually ended up getting my first performance because a friend that booked club shows in the city knew of my interest in burlesque and asked me if I'd like to perform at some date 4 months in the future. And I was like, yes. But creating my show pretty much came from creating an opportunity to perform in a professional review and to have a chance to bring people in that were at the top of our industry that I was inspired by, and to give Oklahoma City the chance to see those kind of performers. So really my whole show has always, we have a core local cast, and the main base of our show, though, is that we always bring in special guest stars to headline.
Well, it is true. I mean, I mentioned earlier how, initially I was a little surprised that there was a burlesque scene in Oklahoma City, and perhaps there wouldn't be much of one without you. I mean, who knows? But that's the thing, like you said, it kind of, the producing kind of fell into your lap, and I imagine that's the case for a lot of producers in either smaller cities or places where there isn't a thriving scene. If you want work, you got to make it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they kind of go together and stuff, but do you prefer producing or still prefer performing, or kind of both together?
Well, for my shows, I produce, perform, and MC.
Good Lord. I'm saying, how do you ever sleep? Like, when do you have time to sleep, young lady?
Very little time to sleep.
And what's your favorite moment, or do they all kind of run together, all of those aspects?
Yeah, they all kind of run together. I kind of fell into MCing, too. I did not want to MC because I was already producing and performing. Yeah. And people that knew me, though, this is probably about a year into producing my show, people that knew me had been hassling me about taking over MCing the show. I mean, because they knew me, and they're like, it's Adele Wolf's show. Like, you need to MC it.
Yeah, it does seem kind of logical, yeah. I suppose.
And but the main thing holding me back was just having that extra thing to take on. But I was already basically writing a script for the people that would MC for me anyway. I think this Valentine's Day will be 3 years now, or maybe it's 4 years. Oh God.
Time flies.
That I've been emceeing the show, and I really love it now. I don't really get to watch acts at my show anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of sad too.
Yeah, I can usually catch snippets, but often I'm, looking over the next performer's intro or, things like that, trying to prepare my headspace. It is a lot more because you really have to be on for the entire show as opposed to just get out there and then you're like, oh. I mean, it's always nice to perform in other people's shows because then I get my act and then I'm like, oh, I can relax and watch everyone else.
There you go. That's true. All right, Adele. Well, the next little section we're going to do, I like to call Pick Your Poison. It sounds a lot scarier than it actually is, though. Don't worry. I have 8 questions that I've prepared, and you have not seen these before. These are just little questions that I thought would be kind of fun and silly just to get to know you a little bit better. And so all you have to do is pick a number 1 through 8, and you're going to get a random question, and we're going to put you on the spot to answer it.
All right. Let's do 5.
Number 5. Okay. If you were stranded on a desert island, what 3 things would you have with you and why? The classic dilemma, right? And I say things here, so we're going to avoid people because that I feel like that's cheating. But because I know otherwise you'd say David Bowie and David Bowie and David Bowie. So let's go actually 3 physical things.
3 physical things. Yeah, when you said stranded, the first I was like David Bowie.
Yeah, I knew it. I know you too well.
Okay, so are like all living beings out?
We got to get the parameters of this question exactly right. I'll allow 1 living being.
Jeez.
Oh, no, but I can't do that to you. You have too many pets,
I'm
right?
like, which of the 3? Oh, God.
So if I allowed all 3, it would be all 3 of your animals?
I don't know, man. I mean,
it's like no food. I don't need food. I don't need anything to do as long as I have my animals.
I mean, you think about it. Okay. I mean, that's a very loaded question, really.
It's true.
Really, I think I'd probably go for practical things in the hopes that I could return to a normal life. So,
okay.
Say maybe a flare gun.
I feel like that's an intelligent thing to bring. Yeah.
Let's see, a lighter. Well, I don't know that a radio would get me anywhere, but let's say a radio.
Something like that. Well, I feel like on Gilligan's Island, they did lots of stuff. They built radios out of coconuts.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think that's possible in real life.
Shut up. Sitcoms are totally possible. Sitcoms are totally real life. This is what I build my life upon. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, well, there you go. I feel like those are very good practical answers. Those are definitely going to help you on a desert island.
Yeah, I would hope that I could get home to my pets.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love how your Instagram, by the way, and everybody should follow Adele on Instagram because it's hilarious because half of the pictures are like these awesome, like burlesque, beautiful, like, or maybe doing, your crafting when you're making costumes, stuff like that. And the other half are literally pictures of your pets.
Yeah.
And you and your pets and everything. And it makes me so happy. Because it's real life, I mean, that's true. We all have these things, right?
They're my little coworkers. All
right, next up, we're going to do a quick this or that section. I'm going to give you basically 2 options and kind of quick fire. You just tell me which one you choose of the 2. I will say as a disclaimer, you can interpret these in any way you want. I am not saying how they should be interpreted or anything. And I'm just going to say them and you answer them.
All right.
Whichever. Okay. All right. Let's do it. Pizza or pasta?
Pizza.
Day or night?
Night.
City or country?
City.
Top or bottom?
Top.
Mountains or ocean?
Ocean.
Classic or neo-burlesque?
Classic.
Comedy or tragedy?
Comedy.
Superman or Batman?
Batman.
Yes. Wine or beer?
Wine.
Sleep or sex?
Ooh.
This one trips everybody up. Yeah.
Let's be real. Sleep.
I love the honesty that comes out in this. All right. Heels or bare feet?
Bare feet.
And lastly, Paris or Oklahoma City?
Paris.
Oh, that's my girl. It's true. Paris it just has something, right?
I'm like in love with it.
So I always like to ask this at the end, just because, as I compile things, I mean, the internet is a huge place. And I was just listening to another podcast today and they were saying, if you're kind of stuck in one corner of the internet, sometimes you don't even know that other places are out there. So I always like to kind of start up this, like almost a database on burlesquestripdown.com with different ways to stay current on burlesque news or burlesque development as a performer. What are your favorite, kind of resources or sites to stay current with the burlesque world?
I follow a lot of 21st century burlesque, and I like to follow the legends pages and other production pages.
Yeah, I have a lot of people are saying 21st century burlesque. I think that's a really great place. Yeah. Kirby, who was my first guest on the podcast, she mentioned another one called Tease Bang Boom, which I just started kind of exploring. They don't have a lot on there yet, but it seems to be a pretty cool site.
Yeah.
And speaking of the internet, of course, YouTube is a wonderful place to be. And sometimes I can get lost on YouTube just looking at especially burlesque videos and of all sorts, all shapes and sizes. Can you give us one YouTube video that you know of that's particularly good that we should check out?
Yeah, I'm going to do like some shameless partial self-promotion.
Nothing wrong with that.
Ula Uberbusen, her performance at the Oklahoma City Burlesque Festival this last year. I've seen it 3 times live, and each time I've had to like really concentrate on not crying.
Oh, wow.
But in a good way. It's like a really powerful, awesome neo-burlesque performance.
Cool. Well, I'll link that up in the show notes. Actually, as soon as we get off this call, also, I'm going to go watch it. But it will be linked in the show notes. So anybody listening, you can go straight to our show notes page at burlesquestripdown.com/Adele. So that's just Adele, Adele. And all of the links, anything that we talked about, probably some David Bowie stuff will be in there too, just because they'll be listed up in those show notes. So you can check that out and check out that YouTube video from the Oklahoma City Burlesque Festival. So that about does it for our little interview. One last thing, of course, we want to be able to, I'm sure you have a bunch of new fans after this. So how can we keep up and get in contact with you if we want to hear more?
Well, I have my website, adelewolf.com, and I blog on there sometimes. I'm trying to be more frequent about it. And from there you can access the festival website, which is okcburlesquefest.com. And also the school website, which is oklahomaschoolofburlesque.com. And I'm an avid Instagrammer, as you mentioned.
Yes, you are.
And I also have a Facebook fan page.
Perfect. Well, we'll get all those linked up in the show notes, so we'll be able to keep up with you that way. And of course, if you are in Paris or Lyon or where'd you say, Hamburg?
Yeah.
Is that where you're? Hamburg. If you're going to be around there anytime here in late November? Is that when you're going to be around?
Well, the whole month.
The whole month of November. Definitely check out Adele's website or Facebook page to find out where she's going to be and check her out there. All right. Very good. Thank you so much for joining us today, Adele.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, we'll talk to you again soon.
Yes.
And there you have it, Miss Adele Wolf joining me for a fantastic interview. I love that girl and all of her pets and her Instagram. Definitely head over there and follow her. I will have all of those show notes linked up over at burlesquestripdown.com/Adele, including a couple special David Bowie surprises, just for fun. So I hope you all enjoyed the episode today. We'll be back on Thursday, of course, for another Hot Tips episode. And next week, I have an interview with the beautiful Violent May, so you won't want to miss that. Thank you so much. Please share out with your friends and email me and let me know what you think. I will talk to you again very soon, my darlings. Until then, stay sexy.